Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're listening to this. This is John Rickgarn, your host, as always, of the Wealth and Freedom Nexus podcast. And today I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach to the show, if you will. This will be a topic based solely on a country. This is the country of Belize. Many years ago, there were many shirts at several airports that said, well, where in the hell is Belize? And I think it was, it's gained a lot of popularity from the 70s and 80s, and especially now. Myself visited Belize in June of 2021 for my first ever real estate summit with the real estate guys at Mahogany Bay Resort. Definitely enjoyed it. Once in a lifetime experience, and definitely recommend anyone that is looking to, shall we say, expand their horizons to definitely check out Belize. It is a great place to visit. I think you'll be very surprised and kind of feel more at home there, especially compared to a lot of other environments. I myself can attest Belize. English is the official language, so English is very widely spoken. That is obviously one barrier compared to Panama, or especially places in Mexico or Nicaragua, just to name a few. Currency is also fairly stable compared to other countries. It's basically just a 2-to-1 peg for the Belize dollar to what the US dollar is. So if you're in Belize and you see something for 10 Belize dollars, well, that's 5 US, and 20 Belize dollars, 10 US, so on and so forth. So if you see anything priced in Belize dollars, you don't need to get out a fancy FX calculator or foreign exchange mathematic formula or anything like that. If you see anything listed in Belize dollars, just take that, divide by 2, and that will give you your US dollar. And US dollar is also widely accepted there too. So if you're visiting and you're at the local grocery, again, just simple mathematics. See a bottle of water for 2 Belize dollars, hand a $1 US bill, and on the way you go. So that right there is 2 things I really like about Belize. But I want to highlight, since this is the Wealth and Freedom Nexus podcast, where the nexus of wealth and freedom is passive income that continually goes into your bank account month in, month out, whether you work or not. And the nice thing about that with passive income, be it royalties or dividends or rent checks or whatever the case may be, those come in, 24/7, and you can, live wherever you want to live at that point. You're not handcuffed to a job per se. So if you are looking to, expand your horizons, maybe you're like me in the US and little tired, whether here in Minnesota, the land of 10,000 taxes, maybe you're sick of paying sky high property taxes, and you are maybe sitting on a lot of home equity, and you're thinking, well, gosh, I have this home, whatever, worth 500,000, 600,000, maybe even just 250,000. Maybe it's time to sell. And, if you're willing to expand your horizons a little bit more, Belize might be an option for you, especially if you're on a fixed income. Maybe if you're, like I said, getting tired of sky high rents and property taxes. Just looking right here, average property tax bill, granted, this is a year ago, $9,000. If you are in New Jersey, that's the average property tax bill annually, is $9,000. You almost need a part-time job just to pay the property taxes there. Maybe you're in New Jersey and you like the oceanfront property. Well, my guest I'll be bringing on, Rachel Jensen. This will actually be the 3rd time she's appeared on this podcast, but this time she's coming in as the owner agent of Luna Realty in Belize. And just a little spoiler, if you're paying $9,000 a year in property taxes, maybe if you're even like me, paying about $2,600 a year in property taxes, you'll definitely want to listen to this episode. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised how low property taxes can be in Belize as well as outside the United States. One final note, I'm just looking here. Average rents, again, this is across the United States, range about, depending who you listen to, about $1,500 a month. In the United States, many places are seeing 20% rental increases. And maybe if you're on a fixed income and you're thinking, well, gosh, I just really can't afford, rents as they're starting to get higher and higher and higher. again, Belize might be an option. So stay tuned. Be sure to take some notes and just keep an open mind. I've reminded of a quote from Andrew Henderson, the Nomad capitalist: "Go where you're treated best." So if you're getting sick of high taxes, high regulations, and just want to live in a nice, quiet area, and you're on a fixed income and just want to spend less towards housing, food, cost of living, you'll definitely want to hear more. With that, after a message from the show's sponsors, we'll be talking with Rachel with Luna Realty Belize. Are you tired of the roller coaster of the stock market? The S&P 500 just had its worst start to a year in over 50 years. The NASDAQ is down 25%. The Dow is in correction territory, and past stock darlings like Netflix are down over 60% year to date. Why not invest in assets that provide constant cash flow and growth unrelated to the stock market? From private businesses to cryptocurrency, the options are nearly endless. I myself have invested in promissory notes, self-storage syndications, a Bitcoin mining fund, and even a teak parcel down in Nicaragua in my retirement accounts. IRAs, solo 401ks, even HSAs don't have to be constrained by traditional stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And that is why I trust Amanda Holbrook and the specialized trust team with my retirement accounts. Reach out to Amanda today, 505-514-0587, or go to specializedtrustcompany.com for a free consultation today.
Are you tired of the 9-to-5 lifestyle? Do you want more freedom to do what you want, when you want it, without sacrificing your current income? Then this is the show for you. Every week, we dive into John's journey towards financial freedom and everything he has learned since 2014. Real estate investing, cryptocurrency, stocks, private lending, foreign residency, tax saving strategies, infinite banking, assets protection, and much more. Now, here is your host, the founder of the Wealth and Freedom Nexus, John Rickgarn.
Welcome back, Rachel. Thanks for coming again on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's so much fun to chat with you, John, about investment opportunities, Belize, beautiful countries, and everything in between.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you were able to come back on. And previous episodes you're on talking about, everything from teak hardwood to obviously investing in Belize, as well as, other foreign countries. But kind of wanted to talk a little bit more of just Belize. I'm guessing it's just as hot and humid there as it is now as it was when I came a year ago.
It's definitely warm. I have my fan set up right over here, but it's part of living in the tropics. And it's funny because I've been living in Belize for the last 10 years, or in the tropics for the last 10 years. I'm originally from New York. And when I go back to New York, it's like the cold just seems so much colder. And I remember that there was a time I was back for Christmas and it was probably about 50 degrees and it wasn't freezing by any means. But I'm sitting in the car talking to one of my clients and I was like, oh, it must be like 25 degrees here. And I look at the weather app and it says it was 50 degrees. And I was like, okay, my body's, I think, acclimated to the warmer climate at this point.
And I'm the exact opposite. Back in February, I went to a conference down in Alabama and I'm in shorts and a polo shirt, just like I am now. And everyone's like, aren't you cold? It's 50, 55, 60 degrees. I'm like, it was negative 20 when I left Minnesota the week before. So no, this is downright tropical. So.
Well, and it's funny here. So I'm on an island called Ambergris Caye, which is the #1 tourism destination. So we have tourists year round. And December and January is actually when the weather gets a little bit chillier, not by much, but, okay. 75 degrees, 80 degrees instead of the normal 85 and lower humidity. But you see all of the locals and the people who grew up here bundled up. I'm not kidding, in parkas. Right there, parkas, long pants, like hats even. And then you see the tourists just like you, Johnny, who are there in the shorts. I'm like, yep, they're just visiting.
So interesting. You mentioned the Ambergris Caye #1 tourist spot. Is that for the tropics, for Belize, or #1 worldwide, or?
Sure, definitely for Belize,
okay.
The island that I'm on. So Belize is a small country, a population of about 400,000 people, and there are 300 plus little keys or atolls, little islands off the coast of the mainland. So I'm on one of the keys, and this island, Ambergris, has become really popular since the 70s and even a little bit before, but with the divers and fishermen. and people who wanted to get in the water because we parallel the reef. And it's the longest living reef in the world, but it's the second longest reef, but the largest living reef right now. So it's actually more living than the Great Barrier Reef off of Australia. So we get a lot of people, we get a lot of people who are coming down here for diving and fishing and snorkeling. And that's really when the tourism started, was the 70s and 80s. And there were always the adventure travelers who were coming down before that, right? But that's when we started to see more of the hotels pop up. And since then, it's really transformed into a very family-friendly place where you don't even have to like diving or snorkeling or fishing, but people are coming down for that tropical getaway. We drive golf carts here, so they're driving around in golf carts, checking out the island, and it's very much so a safe spot, which I think is attractive for people who are coming down. I was just in the Dominican Republic last week in Punta Cana. I was there for a wedding. And at the hotel, they're like, you really shouldn't leave. And the people I was with, they're fairly adventurous. They want to go check out the local markets and go do a lot of the local things. And like, well, we'd advise you not to leave without having a taxi driver, this and that. And, here in Belize, we're like, no, get out, go try the restaurants up the street, go to the beaches up north, go down south and check out the sunset. So there's a lot of opportunity here for people to move around and be mobile and be safe while on vacation, which really, I think, helps them to feel more welcome into the place that they're vacationing in. And so that's why I'd say it's number one in Belize. Certainly we have the reef, and it's that sense of security here and safety that tourists have when they're visiting.
All right. Interesting. You mentioned the Dominican Republic. I actually went there on a trip, almost 10 years ago now. And I mean, the resort was nice, but, you started looking at the concrete walls, are 12 feet high and the razor wire going around it, and started touring around and like, okay, there's a lot of the armed people with machetes and AK-47s. So did not see that in Belize. So I can attest to the safety there. So maybe Rachel, you could first start off. Obviously, you're coming to us with a kind of a new business venture, Luna Realty, helping, I'm guessing investors or maybe just anyone that maybe wants to, relocate to Belize or, second home or vacation home, or even just find a place to rent for their, I don't know, like an Airbnb stay.
Yeah, exactly. And so for the last 10 years, I was working with a real estate developer here. And as my time with the developer, I realized that there are just so many opportunities within Belize, from buying hotels to buying vacant land to just hold on to buying resort products, that I wanted to expand what I was working on for my career. And so I started Luna Realty as a means to help people find those different means of either investing or living. And originally, when I first moved to the tropics in 2012, I was living in Nicaragua. I was coming back and forth to Belize all the time because we were starting up a team here, starting up operations here in Belize. And I just found myself wanting to visit more and more and more, staying for longer every time I was on Ambergris Caye. And it's a place that felt like home, right? So I went through the process of getting the work permit, of applying for residency, of buying real estate down here, of investing in real estate down here, renting properties. And so I've found that there's this really unique place in the market right now for expats or foreigners who want to buy in the market. Belize is very friendly towards foreign buyers. And so it's just a great place I found personally for people to own and invest in. But I also think that people need to come and check it out. And so I wanted to be that resource for them in order to help them discover what's available.
Cool. Now, maybe we'll just kind of go into like 3 segments for people that might be interested in, Belize or the tropics, so to speak. I'm here in Minnesota, where it's hot and humid in the summer, and then we get to 16 feet of snow and negative 20 wind chill in the winter. Also, Minnesota, I mean, it's not a California or a New York, but kind of a joke, we're known as the land of 10,000 taxes. Property taxes can be relatively high. Our state income tax is one of the higher in the nation. For anyone that, just maybe, Minnesota, Northern Hemisphere, Canada, even, for instance, maybe they're wanting, a change in climate, but also a little like, too much taxes. Like, what does the tax climate look like in Belize for residents or for tourists, I should say?
Sure. So if you're planning to own property here, I'm going to talk about the fees associated with owning property, and then I'll get into the taxes. So if you decide to own real estate here, there's one big fee at the beginning of the purchase, which is called the stamp duty, and that's the title transfer paid to the government that is paid from the buyer and is paid to the government. And so that's 8% of the purchase price.
Okay.
So there's that bigger fee up front, but once you get over that fee, then the ongoing fees are really minimal. So property tax, for example, property tax is assessed on the undeveloped land. So it doesn't matter what structure you have on the land. It's just based on the undeveloped land, which makes it really affordable. From personal experience, I've paid as little as $10 Belize a year.
Oh, wow.
A year, that's $5 US in property tax for vacant land, to up to about $350 a year for my rental condos. So it can go up more than that. It just depends on how much land you have. I have heard some people who have larger properties paying significantly more, and especially if they're in really touristy zones, you tend to find the property taxes are more. And when I say significantly more, maybe they're paying $800 US a year.
Gotcha.
Right? So it's not like you're not in the tens of thousands by any means, but I have family in New York, family in Jersey, and when they talk about the property taxes there, I'm like, my gosh, you need to get a third job or second job,
I know.
third job, just to pay that chunk for your property taxes. Unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. And then for the people who are looking to relocate to Belize, what I have found a lot of people are doing is coming down as a digital nomad. So they're able to work from their computer and do whatever they're doing and still make that sort of income. But if they're not making the money from Belize, like meaning a Belize company, then they're not obligated. They don't pay Belizean income tax. Now, if they come down to Belize and they're working for a Belizean company, it's domiciled here, it's a local company, and they're physically here working for a Belize company, then they'll pay income tax, and typically about 25%. But Americans, and just for Americans to know that it doesn't matter where in the world you're based, you do need to always file your taxes. I'm not an accountant. Check with your accountant about all of that. But from the Belize side, I'm talking about the Belize side here. That seems to be the most efficient, is for people to be working online and doing whatever they're doing for maybe a company not based here in Belize. And also the reason that I'm saying that is because here income is not the same as in the States, right? So here minimum wage, I think they're trying to push it up to $5 Belize an hour, which is $2.50. But before that, it was about $3.75 Belize an hour. So you're at $1.75, a little bit more than $1.75 US an hour. And that's for fairly entry level jobs. But at the same time, to meet somebody who's making $800 to $1,000 a month, it's pretty good here in Belize. And so if you're expecting to come down and work for a Belize company and make the sort of salary that you're making in the States or Canada or wherever you're listening in from, chances are it's not going to happen. So I would always recommend people go in with that mentality and understanding. And I'm part of a lot of the Facebook groups, the Belize expat Facebook group, and easiest guide to moving to Belize Facebook group, or whatever it's called. And people are always saying what jobs are available, and you may be able to find something at a manager level and up, but you're still not going to be getting those same sort of salaries. So property tax is low. That title transfer tax that I talked about when you own property is a little bit higher. If you're just renting, then you don't have to worry about that. But the ongoing fees really are quite minimal. So that's also a big plus. And then income tax is only if you are working for a Belizean company as a foreigner.
Gotcha. Okay. As far as and again, I'm not an accountant either. So anyone listening to this is not accounting or legal or tax planning advice or anything. If you are if you work for a Belize company and or you're a resident of Belize, now here in the US, we have about, roughly 15.5% if you're self-employed for FICA taxes. Is there anything set up like that in Belize, or is it just that 25%, flat income tax?
Yeah, there is a social security tax. If you're a self-employed and it's, really just you're not obligated to pay it. If you start employing people, then you do need to pay their social security. I don't remember the percentage off the top of my head, but if you're self-employed, the only person working, you're not obligated to pay social security if you don't want it. But then it also means down the line, you're not going to be getting anything.
Sure.
But it is not necessarily mandatory.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it might even be, so if you work as a, like you said, digital nomad, you're working for yourself, or you're a consultant for Airbnb or something like that, that's based out of Belize, then Belize itself doesn't charge you any income tax. It just might be your home country that you're still a resident or citizen of.
Yep, exactly.
So,
exactly right.
Right. And then moving on, I know we talked a little about this off camera, and of course, of all days, your AC happened to be giving issues. But for Canadians, people in the U.S., I mean, right here we're kind of setting records for in the 114 degrees on the West Coast. What is the overall climate in Belize? Just I don't know, does it stay the same year round, or is it nicer in the wintertime, or how does that play out?
Sure. So where I'm at in San Pedro and Ambergris Caye, typically about 83 to 87 degrees year round.
Okay.
During December and January, it gets a little bit lower. Maybe we're at 70 to 75 degrees, maybe up to 60. What we have pretty consistently is humidity. I say there's no such thing as a good hair day in Belize. Your hair is either at the top of your head or you put tons of hairspray in it. But you know what? It's also just part of the culture and the lifestyle here is you don't need to go and get your hair all done and pretty before you go out to the stores or anything along those lines. But it is pretty consistent, 83, 87 degrees year round. And humidity ranges from about 60 to 80%. So it may feel warmer than it actually is because of that humidity aspect. And it also depends where in the country you are. If you go to Caye, I was there this past weekend, Caye, got it to about 92 degrees. But then by the nighttime, it cooled down and we really didn't need an AC. We had one, but we didn't necessarily need it. You keep the windows open and you get a nice breeze coming through. So it really just depends, but it is the tropics. It is indeed the tropics. I always recommend when people are coming down, bring a water bottle, like the reusable water bottle. You see me drink out of mine every now and again, and just hydrate yourself because you just don't realize how thirsty you're getting from being in the sun or close to the equator too, right? So you have the sun is a little bit stronger, and so many times I've met people who come down who either like love tanning or their skin is nice and golden and like, nah, we don't need sunscreen, we're good. We're used to the sun where we are in Minnesota over the summer. So down here you're a little bit close to the equator, so you want to just lather up the sunscreen and make sure that you're protected. So it does stay pretty tropical, but it's funny, you'll see the people like I was mentioning before, the people in parkas in December and January. And they're all bundled up and you're like, wow, I'm not sure why people were all bundled up. It was like you said, -20 when I left home from Minnesota this morning. I'm in my shorts and t-shirts now, but it's a good spot. And I've definitely become used to the tropics and the tropical weather. And you do, the more you're outside, just stay hydrated is really the big thing. And you don't need to wear sweatpants when you go outside. Dress accordingly and appropriately to the weather.
This show is brought to you today by Lightbulb Podcasting. Are you a busy professional that needs to get more time back in their schedule? If you are a podcaster like me, you have enough on your plate. Why not outsource your podcast production? From editing, show notes, keywords, scheduling, volume balancing and editing, and creating audiograms, podcast production is another job in and of itself. That's why I use Lightbulb Podcasting. Get phenomenal support at an affordable price while you concentrate on growing your brand. Go to www.lightbulbpodcasting.com today to schedule an introductory call. Put your content in the spotlight. Obviously, mentioned with Belize, kind of obviously a tropical place. I know here in the U.S. they had someone that was beachfront condo. I think their rent was going from $6,000 to $6,500 a month, and beachfront in California, Florida, a bunch of ours. I mean, you can easily talk in the thousands. As far as like cost of living or like, average, rent or average, mortgage payments, what do those typically run? What you see in Belize or Ambergris Caye, Belize, I should say, versus, other places?
Sure. So Ambergris Caye tends to be the more expensive part of Belize. So everything that I'm saying is just an average for the island here. And then you can expect it to be just a little bit less for the mainland. There are factors that have to be considered when you're building out here. For example, when it comes to real estate, things are more expensive to get out to the island, right? First, you have to ship it to the country, then ship it out to the island. And it just costs a little bit more. Labor is a little bit more expensive out here than on the mainland because we have to have people live out here and cost of living is a little bit more. So with that being said, it's all an average for Ambergris Caye. And so typically, beachfront, you're able to find a place $1,000 to $1,500 for a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom. If it's a really nice 2-bedroom, it may be closer to the $1,800 a month range, and that's in US dollars. There are factors to consider as electricity. Electricity tends to be more expensive here than it is in the United States. So you'll find, I would always recommend try to find places with split AC systems instead of central AC, because that'll help keep your costs down, because then you can just cool down the room that you're in versus the entire place. And if you
Okay.
have a bigger place, it's going to cost more if you have central AC. So do look into that. In addition to that, water is fairly inexpensive. It depends where you are. A lot of places on the southern part of the island, they're connected up to the public water. And so when I was living down south, I was paying about 25 Belize a month for water on the public system, which is about $12.50 US. And I was living by myself, so one person. You have to factor how many people are living there. And then when you come up north, a lot of the places, they're just starting to put public water in, but a lot of the places have cisterns. And so they'll depend on rainwater, or if they run out of water, then they can call a truck in and fill up their cistern for them. So, luckily the house I'm in now, we have a cistern, and we've been getting a bit of rain at night, which is nice. So we always love when it rains. Yes, we don't have to pay for water. So those are things to consider when you're owning or renting, and then also cable and internet. A lot of folks, I think, don't even tend to get cable these days because you're able just to have Netflix and your Roku or Apple TV or whatnot and connect to most stations. But internet, I pay about $65 a month Belize, so $33 a month US for it's great internet. I do my Zoom calls, watch Netflix, do all that on the internet. So again, some of these are countrywide prices. Some of them are more just to the island.
Sure.
And then, so the two big purchases that somebody would be making if they're coming down here, relocating, would be one, a home, right? Are they buying a home? Are they buying it outright? There's some seller financing, but a lot of the transactions here are done in cash. So if you own your home and you purchased it with cash, and you don't really have those monthly payments or the mortgage payments necessarily. So that would be one big purchase to consider. And then the other is a golf cart. So our primary mode of transportation here is golf carts, or, it's like Polaris, people, the mules people have. And so for people who are coming in, you may want to buy one, and this is going to blow your mind how expensive they are, but they can go anywhere from that 8,000 US to about 15,000 US, just depending if it's new or what condition it's in. And so, if you buy that up front, then you have less monthly cost, right? Because if you're doing a long-term rental for a golf cart, it's like a luxury, like a Lexus. That's how much it is. Like on a monthly basis, it can be like $350 a month, to about $500 a month US, just depending on what time of year you're renting. So, those are the factors that I would highly consider. And I do actually have a breakdown of estimated costs and expenses. So if anybody wants that, feel free to reach out, and we can get that list over to you, and I can give you more. But overall, I do see some things are more expensive, like electricity. And if I want to live like a tourist, I can spend $50 US every day on a meal, but you learn where to go. And so I'd say, generally costs are less. You do find yourself spending less down here, but I mean, that's just me personally. You can live like a tourist all day long and shop on Amazon Prime, where they have to mail stuff to you. Then you pay customs and duties. You can pay for the most expensive Polaris that there is, and then have to pay to get all the parts in. So it really just depends on your lifestyle, but it's, I think, quite easy to live simply here.
Okay. That was good. Well, and actually the golf cart doesn't, faze me as much. Just last night in the news, they said the average grand cost of a new car has climbed to like $45,000 in the US. So, I mean, even the high end of 15,000 is like, hey, we can get 3 golf carts for the price of a new car in the US. So,
oh my gosh, it's unbelievable how much costs have increased. I mean, just across the world. And I think it was from one of Keith's podcasts the other day, where he was saying that inflation in June rose 9.1%, which was, I mean, and you just think about it continuing to increase like that. And yes, things have increased here too. I don't think it's been as drastic as the States, because we started a lot of things costing less than it was in the States, but it's still certainly, more expensive in some regards. But you just have to be conscious with what you're spending your money on.
Sure. No, that makes sense. So yeah, I think obviously you said electricity can be more expensive. Of course, if you're used to the US where you run the AC and have the windows open, might want to tamper that down a bit. Golf carts, obviously a little bit less. The one time, 8% fee, I guess, isn't too bad. Then obviously the lower property taxes. Any other like cost of livings, or licensings, or any anything special to Belize that anyone looking to relocate or even just visit should be aware about?
Yes, I will talk about gas prices. I know that those are going up wildly everywhere here. It does tend to be more expensive than the United States, just regardless of what time of year it is. I think I paid about $7 US a gallon the other day. So it is a little bit more expensive, but the plus side is you have a golf cart, right? So you're not filling up hundreds of dollars every week in order to get around, because it's a 4-gallon tank and that'll last you a week or so. So it does seem to be a little bit more affordable in that regard, because you're not driving a huge car necessarily. And then I would say the cost of opening a business. So what we see is a lot of people come down here and they are so excited to be in a new country. And maybe they think that they want to retire because that's what their plan was. And then all of a sudden they get here and they're like twiddling their thumbs after a month, like, okay, well, this is great, but I actually do want to do something. In that case, what we've seen a lot of expats is they'll examine the market while they're here for however many months before deciding to work, and then seeing what's really needed. And then they'll start a business. And here you don't need to be a resident to start a business. You don't need to have a work permit to start a business. You can open up a Belize 250 company that's a local company here in the country, and that costs about $1,500 US. And then there are some additional licensing. You need trade license, which allows you to operate. And then depending on the industry you're in, there's FIU, it's Financial Investigative Unit, I think is actually what stands for, but it's basically to make sure that the person who's running the business isn't a money launderer, or that the business isn't a money laundering scheme. So you have to get through that, which costs about $1,000. And it does take a little bit of time. It does take about 3, 4, 5 months with the right person. If you're doing it on your own, it could take a little bit more time. I'm a big fan of working with people who've done it before, and facilitators, for lack of a better word, because a lot of the times they're able to push things through, and you don't have to worry about making the trip to Belmopan or going to the central offices in order to push things through. So those would be the other expenses. If someone wants to come down and start a business, we can have probably a whole nother show on what it's like to start a business here in Belize, but just giving you some quick updates. But other than that, I think it's a lot more affordable than the States. And like I said, you just live simply, because we don't have those big chain stores. We don't have the Target where you can go in for, 1 can of Lysol and then walk out with $300 in your car. There's just not that opportunity per se. We do have some, great department stores, but don't necessarily have those big chain stores like Target or Walmart or Macy's or whatnot that you have in the States. And so you really support more of the mom and pop shops, which I appreciate. It's nice getting to know the people that you're buying from. And then over time, it's quite nice, because then they'll start to give you discounts, random discounts. Oh, you got a block of cheese that was originally $10, Belize, let me give it to you for $7, please. Oh, wow. It becomes a lot more familiar, where in the States, like you go to Stop and Shop or whatever grocery store you have by you Fairway, and it's just someone scanning the barcode. Exactly. And bringing you out. And so it's a little bit more familiar, which is nice too.
Okay. Good to know. So if anyone, obviously you're, the owner agent of Luna Realty in Belize, if anyone is interested in, either a second home or moving or rental, vacation, or maybe I want to develop the next hotel on Ambergris Caye or whatever the case may be, what's the best way to reach out to you, Rachel?
I would say email is the best. It's rjensen at Luna Realty Belize, rjensen, and that's rjensen at lunarealtybelize.com. That would be the best way to get in touch with me. And I have a handful of resources now. The top things to consider before buying real estate in Belize, the price cost chart that we were talking about before. Happy to send that over too. So perfect. Just let me know that you heard us on this podcast here, so that we're able to get that over to you. And I know what it is we're referring to when we're emailing back and forth, and we'll be able to get that your way.
All right. Sounds good. And again, as always, for those listening, I'll have all the email and stuff in the show notes, so you don't have to hit rewind, find a pen, and scribble it on a piece of paper. So, all right. Well, I appreciate your time, Rachel, and letting my listeners know a little bit more Belize. Let you get back to your real estate duties, and hope to have you on the show at a later time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. I'm looking forward to chatting with folks about Belize, answering any questions, and going from there. Bye, everyone. Sounds good. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to share, rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. For more updates, check out www.wealthandfreedomnexus.com. Remember, nothing on this show should be considered tax, legal, investment, or professional advice. This show is produced solely for educational and informational purposes. Please consult an appropriate and licensed tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for specific advice for your situation. For distribution or publication rights or media interviews, please contact the host.